What's up, you guys? Fearless Front coming at you today with a little bit of information on the Murray mudding mower here. I get asked quite a few questions about this thing. A lot of people want to know how I did the separate choke, how the hood quick releases off of the body and makes it real easy to work on the motor, and a lot of people want to know what the actual top speed of this thing is. So hopefully today we can answer all those questions for you. So we'll start with the hood, since that's got to come off anyways, to show you the choke system. And the way the hood is held on is actually 3 points. There's the one hitch pin here, this is just a stud coming off the body. You'll see that more later. But that actually holds the whole hood on, this one little hitch pin. And the other 2 contact points are these bolts right here. And those actually bolt into the hood and stick out. And they're these type of bolts. They're like necked, I guess is what you'd call it. So it only bolts into a certain point like there, and then this whole section is exposed. And right here, you can't see it really well now, but these are actually 1/2-inch box end wrenches with the ends cut off, and they kind of slide over this little smooth surface right here, holding the hood on. It literally takes seconds to remove this thing, which is pretty handy. Done. So there's my hitch pin and hood pin I showed you a second ago, and that's just welded to the top here. If you're going to do that, be sure to remove your gas tank before you start welding on this thing. Or you could do a bolt with a hole drilled through it or something like that just as easily. A bolt bolted up through the bottom with a nut on the top to stop it, and then maybe drill a hole through it, and there you go, you got a hood pin. And like I said, these little things down here are just wrenches. You can see that now. There's one on that side and one on that side. And those are welded onto my custom front bumper, which, by the way, yes, it is a set of handlebars flipped upside down with the handle pieces cut off. Pretty simple stuff here. But like I said, this bolt just kind of fits into these, and this one's obviously a different size so it doesn't fit, but you can see them here on the hood. Right there, there's the one, and there's the other. And that's a pretty slick system. Works really easy and really well, and I have 0 complaints. The hood never falls off. So the next question I get a lot of is how I did the separate choke, and I think a lot of people get confused on this because they do the foot throttle modification that I've shown you in other videos, and they realize they can't start their lawnmowers because the choke doesn't work. Now you have a couple of options when you go about doing this. You can install a choke lever like I have, or you can just, hook a piece of string to the choke butterfly, or reach around the front of your tractor and just pull the butterfly every time you cold start. It's really not that big of a deal. I just like the convenience factor of having the choke lever. I already had one laying around, so I used it. You can pick these up on eBay. They're MTD choke levers, or I don't know what they're specifically called, but they come on MTD tractors, the older ones from the 90s and stuff. And they're pretty universal. They work on anything. But as you can see, it just kind of bolts onto the chassis there. The cord runs through and goes to the first butterfly, which is your choke butterfly on the carburetor. And like I said, you can attach a piece of string here, or you can do what I've done with the choke lever. The hardest part is basically figuring out how to bolt the thing onto the carburetor. But you can see I've basically done that by just kind of drilling a hole in the air filter assembly and setting a screw in there, and it works pretty well. So that's pretty much all there is to that. There's really not much else to it. It's very simple, and it's basically just for convenience. You don't really need one of these, but it helps, if you don't want to reach around onto a hot motor or something, if you need the choke to start it. So probably the most frequent question I get is, what is the top speed on my Murray here? And I always guess, and I say probably 15 to 18 miles an hour. I really have no idea. I'm a terrible judger of speed. But whatever, we're going to figure it out today. I'll start by saying I have a 4-inch front engine pulley and a 5-inch transmission pulley and 20-inch rear tires. And all those things factor into your gear ratio, your final drive ratio. If you put bigger tires, you're obviously going to go faster, and there's going to be more stress on your transmission. I personally run small tires, and the reason I do that is because if you run the big tires, you're putting a lot of stress on your transmission. Eventually you're going to drop it into a mud hole, punch the throttle, and something's got to give. I mean, these are just lawnmowers we're driving here, people. So don't go overboard on the tires. Don't get them too grippy. Don't get them too big. You'll just break things. If you want to have fun and, keep having fun for many years, all you need is some small tires. You guys have seen what this thing does with those little tires, and it's really not a problem. It does everything I ask it to do. It gets stuck once in a while, but that's what makes it fun. Having that challenge, trying to get through things. A lot of people also ask me, what is a good pulley ratio? What should I start with? And I usually tell people 1-to-1 is the best. And what that basically means is have the same size front and rear pulley. You could have 2 4-inch pulleys, 2 5-inch pulleys, 10-inch pulleys, 1-inch pulleys. It really doesn't matter. They're all going to be the exact same speed as long as they're both the same size. I typically tell people to go with 4 to 5-inch pulleys because any bigger than that and you run into clearance issues on the engine side, any smaller than that and you run into clearance issues with the shifter linkage. Or a lot of times what you get is when you drop it into a water hole, if your pulleys aren't big enough, you've got a tiny little surface area. If you've got a big pulley, you've got that much more circumference of your pulley touching the belt. And when you're in water, friction is key. If you don't have any friction because you got a little tiny pulley and it's wet, then you're screwed. If you have a relatively big pulley and it gets wet, you've still got all that surface area for that friction to try to occur on the pulley. So I usually say stick to a 4 to 5-inch pulley if you're gonna mud it. If it's strictly for grass and grass carring and lawns and stuff like that, then, you know, the sky's the limit. Do what you want. Go as fast as you want. But for mud, I typically say don't go bigger than 1-to-1 because you'll just run into slippage issues. And really in the mud, you don't need to go that fast. You do need a good amount of torque. And in my case, I drive a lot through the woods, so I don't necessarily want to go that fast. If you guys have driven a lawnmower through the woods, you know it's not that enjoyable of an experience. So I typically like my slow and low gears for the bumpy stuff, and I keep 3rd, 4th, and 5th gear basically for the mud or from getting from point A to point B. But enough of the chit chat, let's figure out how fast this thing actually goes. It's actually not quite as fast as I thought it was. I only got up to about 12 or 13 miles an hour. So I mean, that's all right. Like I said, it's a mudding mower. If I wanted to go fast, I'd get on my racing mower. That does 42, and you guys have seen that. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio like we talked about. It's slightly lower, which is fine for me. It's exactly how I like it, and that's how you guys should build your machines, is how you like them, not how everyone else tells you to build it. Build it to your driving style. If you guys have any more questions about this thing, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Check me out on Facebook if you guys haven't already. I have a page up there now. You can like me and check that out, and I'm hopefully going to start doing some updates and, you know, polls and questions and stuff for you guys like that. So, but that's pretty much it for this video. Check me out on Facebook. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll see you next time.